All right. Welcome, everyone, to Maker's Bar, where we are creating a million leaders. I'm happy to be a part of that. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Goldenberg. I'm here with Sagar, and Sagar is an expert in the engineering space. He works for a company called Cruise out of San Francisco, and we're going to be hearing a lot about his background and experience today. Sagar, thank you for coming on.
Sure, it's my pleasure. Nice talking to you, Troy.
Again, thank you. And right on that note, we'll get into it. Can you first just start us off with your journey, your story, what brought you here today?
Yeah, I think in my professional journey, I started off as an embedded systems engineer, and I was originally very excited about working with like hardware and the software and the firmware that kind of runs it. Uh, got a master's in electrical engineering from University of Texas at Arlington, and then did not quite like what I was doing and started doing more object detection, tracking kind of things, and that's how I got into the autonomous vehicle space. And then since then, I have worked at a couple of companies, and now I'm here at Cruise working on the self-driving cars.
Very cool. Very cool. Were there any pivotal moments in your journey that either led you to where you wanted to study or that led you to Cruise in particular?
Yeah, I think my original interest in the embedded systems domain, I quickly realized during that phase that this is not something that I like, and I started doing something way out of which I felt was out of my league was working on this machine learning or object detection problems, and I could not foresee a lot of innovation happening in the embedded system space. And I thought, okay, I got to find an area where I can see that interest, that innovation, an industry that will evolve over the period of about 5, 10, 15 years maybe. And then I started doing this object detection, tracking, autonomous vehicles in general was an area that I was super interested in. So yeah, I think that was a very important decision that I made that got me here at Cruise. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. I find that it's a common theme that people say, I decided to go after something that was out of my league, that I just maybe wasn't qualified for, because we all have that kind of self-doubt in us until we just go do it. So we pick up the book or just try something out for the first time, then we see ourselves improve. It's very cool. And then as far as the autonomous driving and the kind of the new generation technology that we're coming on, I'd like to get some of your industry insights. Like, how have you seen the industry evolve or change over the past 5 years, maybe the past decade?
Mhm. Yeah, I think I started working in this industry in 2018ish. I started working with a lidar company, and I think what I've seen in the last 6, 7 years is I've really seen the industry, like the AV space, really evolve from almost from zero to one. And I think you'll be surprised to know that a lot of inventors have started with the most basic ideas, and probably the first, well, not really an autonomous vehicle, but a self-propelled cart essentially was built by Da Vinci in 1498. And then that was probably the first ever invention that led to a robot or a self-driving car in a way. But I think more talking of the more recent times, the DARPA challenge was a very important place. It pretty much served as an incubator for a lot of self-driving car companies. And Google came up with their self-driving project, and then there were a lot of OEMs and other people that kind of were ramping up on this capability. And I think in the last 3, 4 years, or maybe 2 years, this industry has also seen a lot of consolidation. So because it is a very difficult problem to solve, it is capital intensive, needs operations and top talent, regulations, risk, all those things. So the industry has now seen consolidation, and where we were, like I would say rather, last 5, 10 years, where that we were trying to ensure that a prototype of a self-driving car works on the road, so that you don't need a driver. A car can run on its own on the streets, making some basic decisions, or I would say basic to mature decisions eventually.
Interesting. And then You mentioned the prototype. Is there a prototype driving on the road now for Cruise?
I think I like to believe that we have come way farther from a prototype. I think we are now in a lot of cities, Phoenix and Austin and others, and I think we are doing pretty decent with much more than a prototype. I would say we are almost production.
Amazing. So, what are the biggest challenges facing you here today?
I would prefer not to talk about any proprietary stuff if
Okay.
possible.
Yeah, no, not a problem. Not a problem at all. Um, we'll
But I
skip
can
right
talk
over
about
that.
generally about the autonomous vehicle space and the kind of challenges today that the industry faces.
Let's go with general. Now maybe I'll get one more industry insight from you, and then we'll move on. But let's go with general in the autonomous vehicle space. What are the biggest challenges?
Yeah. I think I touched based earlier that it's a hard problem to solve. I always like to call it that it's a beast with a long wagging tail. And I think today where the industry is that we are trying to solve that long tail of problems, where you are trying to like you are essentially enabling the self-driving car to drive in scenarios where it is very challenging even for the human to drive, making those really smart decisions, driving in challenging scenarios. So that is the more tech challenge part of the thing. And then there is this whole other thing about regulations and high risk with like safety is also another issue. So I think those are the challenges that the industry is trying to solve. I think very recently the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, essentially green flagged Cruise and Waymo both to start driving into San Francisco 24/7 and being even
Wow.
really able to charge the customers for a ride. So it is as good as calling an Uber or a Lyft.
Wow, that's really cool. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's a huge advance. That's a huge advancement. Wow, that's incredible.
So one thing I can definitely say is that if people hearing this do not have a Cruise app and you are living in a city where Cruise is already providing a service, download the app, check it out on your own. You'll find that it works like wonder.
Which I know you've mentioned San Francisco, Phoenix, Austin. What other cities are you in?
So I think we are in San Francisco, Phoenix, Austin. We are also testing in a lot of other cities. I think we are in Nashville, and others. So I do know the list, but I'm not sure how much it is public. So I would rather stick to whatever
Okay,
Cruise
gotcha.
communicates officially.
Yeah, okay. I have a bachelor party in Austin this weekend, so I'll download the app and I'll definitely check it out.
Well, I think it is the perfect place to check it out. Bachelor party. I'm sure you're gonna have fun out late night. When once you're done with that, take a cruise back to your hotel or to your home. You'll have the best experience of your life.
No, I definitely will. I definitely will. I'm excited, and I'll let you know how it goes. I'm definitely another layer of excitement for that weekend.
For sure.
Let's transition a little bit here into your leadership and your management style. And as this is Maker's Bar, that is our goal here. We love having leaders on and creating more leaders. And so, on that note, how would you describe your leadership style? How have you evolved as a leader over the years?
Yeah. Um, I think my my leadership style essentially is a lot of hands on, hands off. So I context switch between both of those things frequently based on the where a given initiative is and so on. But I think over the period of time, I have learned that there is no one bar fits to all kind of an approach. You cannot have a particular style and then just say that, hey, this is my management style and it applies to everybody. That's not how an efficient not an efficient leader operate in a way. My way is to kind of have that customized approach for every single problem or every single report or every single person who is in your organization, and rather enable them to do the best work of their life. So and essentially a good leader is a good enabler who can let people bring out their best in themselves. And I think over the period of time, I have learned this. I've kind of learned to, focus on the problems that matter the most, and sometimes even take a step back and look at the bigger picture when others are already focusing on those high value areas. I've also learned maybe that thinking very forward or too much ahead does not always help. sometimes trying to solve those local problems that your team is facing, or your organization is facing, is the most important thing to do as well.
Interesting. So really, kind of the word that I would use there to sum it all up sounds like balance. Balance
Yeah.
of a vision for the future, focus on the problems now, be able to be there for the team, not too hands on, not too hands off.
Yeah.
It is a juggling game. It's a constant learning process, and it's very interesting. It's always great to get the insights. As
Yeah.
my goal long term is to definitely be a leader of many. I've been a leader in the past, but it's always great getting to be able to get little
Yeah.
insights.
Yeah, and I think to add to it, I think you put it really nicely, that balancing and the capability to pivot. So if an individual does not know when and how to pivot, definitely one should learn it. But sensing that this is the need to pivot is the most important thing you can foster as a leader, and you yourself as a leader should have the capability to do that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Um, there's a saying that I like a lot. I'm gonna butcher it here, but it's stubborn on vision, flexible on detail. You just definitely need to be willing to pivot and be willing to constantly learn. And on that note, I would love to hear about some resources that have helped you, whether that be books, courses, mentors that have been instrumental in your personal growth, whether that's as a leader or in the engineering space or at Cruise.
Yeah, I think I would definitely put a lot of emphasis on having mentors. I myself, when I transitioned into the leadership or the management part of my career, I had really strong mentors who was actually even my manager when I made the transition, who kind of identified the capability in me, that you should try out a leadership role. I think this is built. It is you are built for it, and you will do well. So I think having mentors who can help you make those initial decisions and kind of help you grow is something very, very important. And really, it does not matter where your mentor comes from, because an individual has a lot of different aspects that goes into their professional journey. So maybe what an engineering leader can teach you is very different from what a human resources person can teach you, or maybe your father can teach you, or a good friend can teach you. So there is learning everywhere for everyone. You have to go seek the growth, and that always comes from there. So definitely mentors are a very important part of the story. With when it comes to books, I'm more of a person who focuses on having that experience rather than reading someone else's experience. I mean, it definitely helps, but I believe that for an individual to grow in their career, or even as a person, it is very important to experience what you are trying to do, or what someone is recommending. I can very easily come in and say that I can spit out certain facts, but unless and until an individual experiences that, they are never going to be able to make that kind of growth they would like to. So I would say that reading a lot of books or even courses is great, but find ways to go and experience those things on your own, because nothing beats experience.
It's good to know. Good to know. I've heard it before, but it's always good to hear again. And then, so when you mentioned the mentors and everything that you can learn, and from doing actually from the actual experience, everything that you can learn, it does kind of transition us into a question of how do you stay updated? How do you keep learning about the industry developments? How do you stay on top? Because I know, especially in a space like autonomous vehicles, there could be cutting edge every morning when you wake up, new technologies,
Yeah.
new trends, something that came out that's going to change the whole game. So how do you stay on top of all that?
Yeah. I think I built a good interest in reading research papers that helped me a lot. And one thing, the way I have applied it is that, you take a research paper, you just does not work for you right out of the box. So definitely running those experiments, small experiments based on whatever you learn, either from the research papers, or maybe, joining those communities, meetups, I mean, in the San Francisco area, you have a lot of this tech meetups, startup meetups that keep happening all around the Bay and even in the San Francisco city. So being in those places will always tell you what is coming next, what is working for people, what is not working for people. And the best part about the tech industry is that everybody is very open to share their learnings, to share their failures, and we can everybody can learn from one another. So I think those are all good events to go to. Reading papers, going to conferences is a great way to enable your learning. I think those are all good things to look out for. Yeah, I think those are good resources that I have myself found, pretty useful and handy to keep up with the trends.
Good to know. Good to know. I'm starting to go to conferences myself more and more. Speaking of Austin, actually, I went to South by Southwest, and I was able to attend some speeches and a couple of conferences in that overall greater conference. I learned a ton. I met a ton of great people. So I would definitely echo that, and that's something I'm putting emphasis on myself.
Yeah. I think definitely. I felt that going to conferences, there are also a lot of interactive sessions that people engage in, like workshops and so on, where you not only learn from, let's say, from a book or from a paper. You also, there is an author, there is a person who has actually lived that experience, that experiment, who can share their learnings from that. So I think it is super important to learn from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. That makes a ton of sense. And then quickly to transition back into Cruise, the company's culture and the dynamics. So, what have you noticed at Cruise versus some of the other companies, or versus the entire industry, as far as culture? What kind of sets you guys apart there?
Yeah, I think Cruise is a very. I think we have a very interesting culture here because we value ownership a lot. We give people the platform to work on the most interesting problems. We essentially enable people to make those best outcomes come from within themselves, and we value the ownership a lot. So an individual at Cruise has an opportunity to grow from zero to one, uh, very quickly or very in a very slow way. It really depends on them. But I think the values that the company has are definitely surrounding ownership, being a very good customer, essentially working together. Collaboration is also something that we really value here at Cruise. Yeah, I think these values are something that you will see on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of our execution happens in collaborative teams. We value ownership in a way that we trust, and we enable people to deliver very high impactful initiatives for us, and take them from scratch to the start. So I think that is something that we thrive on as a company.
Very cool. My next question was actually going to be, how do you see that culture reflected in the day-to-day operations? But you really just answered it there. Something
Yeah.
that I would love to learn about very quickly, actually, that maybe I should have asked about in the beginning, was what is Cruise's origin story? What year did they start? Um, how did the founders want to come together? If you know that story, I would love to hear it.
Um, I think Cruise. I think Kyle, who's our CEO of Cruise right now. I think he also found Twitch before Cruise, and I think he and other friends from Twitch started Cruise as a self-driving car company. And I think somewhere in 2016 we had a very decent set of progress to show, and General Motors acquired Cruise. And I think it's been going on from there. So I don't have a lot of visibility into the history. I don't remember it on the top of my head, but yeah, I would really just look outside.
No, it's all right. That's all right. I was just curious. And then, as far as for you, on some personal reflection here, looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently in your career, or any quote unquote mistakes? I kind of hate saying mistakes because everything leads you to where you are today. But anything that you look back at that you kind of wish you had a do over on?
That's an interesting question. Actually, I would say that probably I wish I would have been. I mean, I consider myself a little more focused right now than I was earlier in the early days of my career. I wish I could have been more focused when I was, in the early days of my career. I wish I could have learned even more than I did. I think I had really good mentors even starting off, but I really wish I could have, I could have looked for that mentorship outside of just maybe two or three people who are very much from the same industry. And I wish I'd seek mentorship outside. I wish I definitely, would have had a little bit more fun, but I think that is more on the personal side. Um, yeah, I think it is pretty much that, at always where you are in your career, you always realize that back in the day, I wish I had put in that extra hours, or I had put in that extra amount of curiosity that would have led to more knowledge. But yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I can think of.
That makes sense. That extra curiosity is definitely something for me as well. Early in my career, I would say even in before my career back in school, I chose accounting, got my CPA, and I just didn't really have the curiosity to go check around on different things. I didn't love what I was doing, but just kind of accepted it and just saying, "Oh, okay, that's where I am." And I wish I would have put more time in after work to be curious about different subjects and
Yeah.
different industries and all these things that um, again, I hate saying mistakes because I don't.
Yeah.
I think they all lead to where you got lead you to where you needed to be, and life's a long journey. It's not like you get there at 25. So so yeah,
Yeah,
it's good to hear.
I always say that you don't make mistakes, you make experiences. And that's why
Oh,
I
I love
focus
that.
a lot on experiences.
I love that. I love that. I'm gonna steal that from you.
Sure.
And then finally here, how do you handle work-life balance, especially in your role as you've so much experience, you're a manager now, you're a leader. So I could see that getting overwhelming. Do you have any strategies for your work-life balance?
I think the most important thing to manage work-life balance is to be, first of all, be very interested in what you're doing. If you really love what you're doing, you will never be working extra hours. That is the first and foremost thing to keep in mind. Having said that, work-life balance and maintaining work-life balance is a very important thing. And what I try to always do is I try to have like weekly set of goals that every Monday in the morning I write down that these are the goals I'm trying to achieve in this week, and then I try to break them down into like daily goals that by Monday or by Tuesday I want this, and this done. By Thursday I expect this, and this to be done. How do I get there is what I decide on a day-to-day basis, because as a manager your priorities have to change very frequently. And I think keeping up with that requires you to rethink and pivot your goals on a weekly or a day-to-day basis, depending on the kind of environment you are in, or depending on the kind of projects you work on. So I think that is one thing. So essentially, planning your week before you start it is the most important thing to do, and keeping in mind that you have the flexibility to reprioritize everything. So let's say Monday I made that, okay, these are the five things I want to achieve in the week, and on Wednesday when I review it every day in the morning, I say that, okay, out of these five things, probably only are worth doing, and the other three I have to just put them on my backlog. I very happily put them in my backlog and say that, okay, I have a new set of priorities that I need to work on. So mapping your weekly or the bigger picture, that plan, that monthly plan or that weekly plan, mapping that weekly plan to your daily activities and your execution is the most important thing to do. And that will ensure because that you never work on 15 things as compared to five things, because everybody only has 24 hours in a day. My CEO also has 24 hours, and so do I, and so do everyone else. And the way everybody, like good leaders win is by prioritizing on what to work. So essentially, prioritizing what you work on today, what you work on in the week is the most important thing to do. Another important thing to do is to retro, is to look back, reflect, and say that I wish I could have done these three things better, and I'm going to do that the next time. So retroing, reflecting back on the goals that you have achieved, if you're planning on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or whatever the cadence is. Ensuring that you look back, ensuring that you have worked on the right set of priorities, and if not, what could I have done better? What could have changed? What were my blockers? Those are the things that will always ensure that you work on the highest priority things, the most interesting things, and that will always keep your work-life balance in check.
Oh, that's really good advice. I love the battle plan. That's something I've done for a while now, but I make it to do this for the next day, and not just in a business sense, but in a personal life sense. Like everything I want to get done that day, but making one for the week, and then retroactively going back and looking at it and making it flexible. That's definitely something I personally could use, and it's a really really good thought. And on the note of setting goals, I'd love to hear about before. I know we're running a little bit short on time here, but before I let you go, I'd love to hear about the goals that you all have at Cruise for the rest of 2023, and maybe the longer term goals, whether that be a 5 year, maybe 10 years out. What do those goals look like for you?
Um, I think I'll definitely talk about the long-term goal. I would personally say that the long-term goal is to reduce road accidents. A lot of people die because of human errors on the road. They get injured, they die. The overall road safety is at a very low level. And what we are trying to do with self-driving cars is we are trying to ensure that everybody has a safe ride. Either you're going to buy your groceries, or you're going to work, or you're going to meet a friend, you are driving back from a bar. All of that has to basically go away, and essentially there has to be a self-driving car that takes you safely from point A to point B. So what we're trying to do is we are trying to make mobility as safe as possible. That's the goal.
Amazing, amazing, very noble goal. And my last question here for you: what would be some advice that you would give someone getting started in your industry or aiming to be in a leadership position?
um, I think I would say that for somebody who is, well, I think these are two separate questions, I thought. So being in the AV
Hmm.
industry is maybe slightly different, and I think
Yeah,
I would say that there is no better time to join the AV industry than now, because we are solving one of the most difficult problems with a very noble cause. uh, and I think it is right at the intersection of the cutting edge technology. So if you are working in this industry, keep in mind that you will be working on the most important problems, and the most advanced problems, either in AI or in robotics or in infrastructure, anything. So that is definitely something that is there. So that motivation, everybody would really help themselves if they had the motivation, the drive to work in this kind of an industry, and work for a cause. So that is a very interesting thing I personally feel. And then that motivation kind of translates into when you actually sit in a self-driving car which has no driver. There is just literally nobody in the front, and it drives on its own. So maybe that motivation for that whole magical ride is one thing. um, I would say that in terms of people generally aiming for a leadership position, uh, I would say look out for empathy. The people who report to you, the people who are in your organization, are the most important people to watch out for. So be very empathetic to their problems, to the solutions. Be rewarding. Work with people very closely. Know when to take a step back, when to take a step in. Um, yeah, I think from a people side, of leadership, I think that is very important. It is also very important to understand the high level goals that that a leader sets. So, for example, when a leader says that, hey, we're trying to achieve X, Y, and Z, how does that translate into the goals for individuals? So, that whole empathy collected with the vision is the most important thing for a leader, and developing that in small bits. So, no, you cannot reach the moon, in a very simple way. So, you have to have meta goals. take a big goal, break it down into 5 parts or 6 parts or whatever works for you, and then achieve those small goals. So be micro ambitious rather than being mega
Micro
ambitious.
ambitious. Micro ambitious. I like it a lot. Cigar, thank you for your time. I've learned a lot here in our short 30 minutes together. I'm very impressed by what not only you personally are doing, but what you're doing at Cruise. It's a very noble goal, and I've really loved learning about your journey, and I can't wait to learn more about Cruise and follow along. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Troy. It was really nice talking to you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye bye.